Welcome to the Alts Insights podcast, a look at the latest trends we're seeing in the alternative investment universe. AI Insight covers over 200 non-traded alternative investment funds representing nearly $35 billion in assets and over 80 alternative strategy mutual funds, representing 80% of the AUM of the alternative strategy mutual fund market.
I'm Heather Muckle, Senior Director of Marketing at AI Insight. 2020 is coming to a close, so I wanted to talk with AI Insight CEO Sherri Cooke to reflect on an unprecedented year and discuss what's coming up in 2021. Just a little bit of background. Sherri formed AI Insight in 2005 with the primary goal of providing the financial planning community with a more efficient and consistent way to access factual information on alternative investment programs. And from that vision, the AI Insight database was born. Welcome, Sherri, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for this opportunity to chat. It's certainly been a year that I don't think any of us would have ever imagined. But here we are, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Great. Well, let's dive right in and get started with my first question here. What are some of the key reflections you have about 2020 and some points of interest for the coming year?
Well, setting aside all non-business reflections, of which, of course, there are many, I would say from a personal perspective that as an ADISA board member this year, I was fortunate to be able to spend quite a bit of time collaborating with others in the alternative investment space and focusing on some of the things that I think we can all do to make the industry better and ultimately to increase the awareness and the understanding of these products within a growing audience. I believe we all have to work together to bring this space to a whole new level. Also, as Reg BI requirements continue, we're looking at ways to partner with compliance and technology workflow companies that are helping to support these needed processes. And we're also looking to connect with other companies, both inside and outside the traditional alt space, to further increase consistency and transparency in the industry, with really the ultimate goal of making it easier to conduct alt business.
I think that's such a valuable point. These industry relationships have really helped our audience this year, especially through partnering on webinars related to alt performance and Reg BI. So this is definitely something we'll continue to focus on next year. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about COVID impacts this year. How do you think alternative investments played an important role in portfolios this past year, especially given the pandemic?
We're always looking for different ways to give more people, who of course are qualified, access to alternative investments to help them really diversify their portfolios in a meaningful way. And I think that this pandemic has really brought to the forefront the need for people diversifying. And we don't believe that a person is fully diversified if they have all their underlying investments, in either some way tied to markets or invested in, say, a fixed income security, which is still effectively tied to the market. And so I think that this pandemic has really brought front and center the need for some new look at how do we diversify our portfolios. But I would say despite the pandemic, and I think in some cases as a result of, there are now a lot of new and really solid opportunities to invest in real assets, interesting investment structures, and institutionally supported opportunities through the alternative investments that really provide this diversification and some unique portfolio value that is always, I think these things have always been there, but given the pandemic, we've seen some really interesting niches and timely opportunities bubble up to the surface. That said, I always have to provide, coming from the compliance background, that alternatives can certainly be complex and they need to be factually understood and appropriately sold. This industry, I think, really needs to focus on educating financial professionals and investors in so many different ways. And I think one of those really has to be around creating realistic expectations about what these investments are intended to bring to a diversified investment portfolio, and what they're not. Stocks lose value all the time, and there will be alts that don't perform too. And we also have to be mindful of heightened expectations where they shouldn't necessarily be there. As an industry, we really need to do our very best to ensure that these products are properly sold and positioned within client portfolios. And as with all investments, we support conducting the best possible research and diligence to allow firms and advisors to select best of class and help the vested financial firms and producers drive product sponsors toward best of class practices.
I want to key in on one thing you said again, because it's important. You highlighted that despite what was happening in the outside world, there are great opportunities out there to invest in real assets. And this is something we talked about on our podcast over the past several months, particularly in the episodes that focus on alternative investment insights. So those are worth checking out, just another resource. And moving on here, on top of everything else we've had to deal with this year, we've also had to contend with Reg BI. So we know compliance is often an issue for advisors in considering alternative investments, and regulatory scrutiny continues to increase. The SEC's regulation best interest implementation took place on June 30th. So tell me about how AI Insight helps to streamline Reg BI requirements.
You mentioned in the beginning that one of the reasons I created AI Insight was to, bring this consistency and factual information, but compliance was really one of the underlying motivators behind the vision in the first place. I wanted to build capabilities to facilitate due diligence and proper compliance along with education and documentation of all those efforts when selling complex products. Those particular products that the regulators have called out as needing heightened supervision or training. From an audit perspective, we found in any situation, of which we're aware with our clients anyway, if a person has stayed up to date on the requirements around selling different types of investments and make sure that everyone involved is aware of their obligations, adheres to their processes, and documents their efforts, then the regulators are generally satisfied. If you fail to make these efforts up front, right, and you're inconsistent in how you conduct your business from a compliance perspective, then you're just leaving yourself open for trouble. And I preface that before I specifically address Reg BI, because that's fundamentally a lot of what goes into, I think, the concepts behind Reg BI, right, and fiduciary responsibilities. So Reg BI within the BD community, and I think even through the fiduciary standard, with the RAs that's always applied, we're still going to see a whole new level, I think, of extra scrutiny in this regard. So the processes that have been central to our platform from day one can really help support Reg BI requirements and help financial firms and professionals demonstrate that, good faith and reasonable efforts component that Reg BI requires on an ongoing basis. Specifically, we've created a Reg BI guide that steps through the compliance and care obligations and correlates the AI Insight support resource that we have to that particular SEC requirement. And we've done that because we really want to help provide and make the whole process easier for firms to be compliant and to help protect them. And again, this is really just another way that we help to create efficient and consistent educational compliance workflows that can help firms support making good decisions at both the product and the firm level.
Thanks, Sherri. And I'm glad that you mentioned the Reg BI guide. It's such a great resource that pulls out the key points and can help you demonstrate efforts. And that guide can be found on the homepage of AIinsight.com. So very easy to find. All right, we can wrap up here. I think we can all agree that we're ready for a new year. So what is your focus for 2021?
I would say I'd start out first from a business owner's perspective, that ensuring our team and our product continues to maintain consistent integrity of value and exceptional service. This is the backbone of our business, and we have our entire team to thank for that. And so we really want to make sure that our AI team is challenged and fulfilled in their roles with the company. Okay, so from an industry perspective then, We believe that there is a tremendous amount of value for advisors to differentiate themselves and bring really great opportunities through the thoughtful and diligent understanding of alternative products. We provide this value by building and bringing together our amazing network of broker-dealers, advisors, RIAs, alternative investment firms, and industry partners. I mean, that's our goal, is to really have a connection and efficiency for all of the participants in this space. And we also really want to focus on how we can continue to expand the solutions and support we can bring to our clients in the industry, and help educate more financial professionals and clients on, who may not even understand that these products exist, right? Or maybe they're not familiar enough to be comfortable in their level of understanding about alternative investments. And we want them to be able to begin to consider expanding their investment possibilities. And, we need to help show more people why and how successful institutions manage their portfolios through an endowment model. And in doing so, how they can begin to explore similar opportunities for themselves and their clients. So I think there's just such opportunity, and the timing, given where we've been in 2020 and all of the craziness of the markets, right? It's really an important time for this space. And I guess I would close in saying I'm always grateful for how far we've been able to come, and to everyone who has helped to make us successful in our efforts to support this industry. And I really look forward to working with all of our business partners to explore new possibilities and find out what more we can bring to the table, for our clients and the industry in the coming year.
It sounds like a lot to look forward to next year. And Sherri, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Heather. This has been great.
And we wish everyone a happy holiday season and a healthy new year.